The truest words was from Nietzsche when he said that any man who knows too much can't fit in anywhere. And that's the curse of awareness. Once you start to delve underneath the surface, that's when you realize this whole world, it's not so simple. And you start to notice who people really are and the games they're playing. And that fake confidence, all the ulterior motives. And you realize this whole society, it's built on lies. And people, they're sheep. And once you see that, you can't unsee that. So you try and tell people, but they say to you, no, you're overreacting, you are crazy. So you stop talking, but you're still observing, you're still watching, but you know you don't belong anymore. And it's not because you think you're too good for anyone. No, it's because you've seen too much and you're watching everything, and now you know you can't go back to how it was anymore. And awareness, it isolates you. And it's the price of clarity. Because the crowds, they move away. But then at least you know who you are.
Here we are. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Sorry, I got a little mark on my lip there. My face and shaving doesn't mix so well. I'm sure you guys have seen that from time to time. I have a 10-day shadow. So anyway, sorry about that. Welcome. Glad you're here. We had a amazing evening last night. We met with Zoom. That was just a few hours ago. We met at 1 a.m. my time. We finished up about 3 a.m. my time. It was so awesome. Got to see our friends in London and across the world, all from everywhere. And we talked about a number of things. One of the most amazing things that was talked about is this lady who is in Scotland, and she is flying all the way here for the shindig that I'm doing in July. And her stop off point is Iceland to get here. She's going over the top of the globe. She's never been to America, and she's never driven on a right-hand side road, you know, because we drive different opposite sides here in the US compared to the UK. I just couldn't believe it. And it was very moving and honoring to know that someone was going to be traveling literally halfway around the world to be there. So just so you know, we have it's a gig coming up. I'm working on a flyer. It's not done yet. And in fact, I don't even have it with me, but we're meeting on the 18th of July here in Mount Baker, Washington at Artist Point. It's going to be a beautiful time. I'm still getting together the flyer, but if you've been watching me at all, you know all about it. So it's just an amazing moment last night when I found out that someone was coming here from Scotland. Just incredible. And that kind of leads into something I wanted to talk about, was a letter that I received this week. I'll head over to chat here in a sec before I go to the letter. But let me get the letter lined up here. Okay, let's go to chat and see how everybody's doing. Nice. Hey, Scooter. Hey, Clueless. Good. Fortune, you're here. Nice. Glad that you're here. 9mm. Nice. Good to see you, friend. Nice. Hello, Chase. Hi, Larry. Nice. Clintron's good. Good to have you back. Got some repeat customers here. Hi, Matt. Good to see you again. Huko, hello, friend. Hope you and your wife are doing well. Hey, King. What is going on? Old friends here. This is great. Hello, Thang Dang. Chuck, your channel is one of one. Of course, people travel. Thank you, friend. Thank you, friend. Hi, Dean. Welcome. Glad to see you. Love the glasses, dude. Very cool. Hi, Dawn. Buddy, you still have that awesome icon. So good. It's good to see you last night in Zoom, man. Incredible. You were on the same hours as me, man. I'm very proud of those in chat that were there at like 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Just incredible. Incredible support from the group. Nice. The worldwide nature creature family is something special. It is something special. I am teary-eyed right now, and I don't know why. I'm like on the edge of it, but it was very moving to be a part of Zoom last night. Hi, Michelle. Welcome. So Stacy is the angel of the day. Stacy is actually going to be picking up our dear friend from Scotland that I just mentioned at the airport to get her up to the gig up here on top of the mountain. So Stacy is an angel straight from heaven, man. She's done that completely on her own, seeing the need. So just incredible. An incredible person Stacy is. Look at this dog. Yes. Hello, Don Eagle. Hello, Chuck and company. Looking forward to being here. Much love. Glad that you're here. We have a lot to cover tonight. Thank you, Linda. Appreciate that very much. And I love your freaking cat, man. Black and white cats are the best. I absolutely love black and white cats. Tuxedo cats. I couldn't hang for the whole thing last night. It's okay, buddy. It was a late one. It was a late one. It was a late one. So, okay, so this is what I wanted to dive into. Hard of me to catch soon. So, yeah. I'm sorry, Chase. Oh, I'm so glad you actually wrote that. So this is what you guys need to know. Over the coming 6 to 8 weeks, and I'll keep you posted, but over the coming 6 to 8 weeks, the plan is to try and get my website launched. We're getting closer. I've gotten most of the information to Pete, and we're right in it. We're doing it. It's happening, and we can see light at the end of the tunnel. We're shooting for mid-May, and if we can't make mid-May, we'll be launching in June, more towards the beginning of June, mid-June. But that's our time scale, and the reason why I tell you that is because of this. Let me show you. We're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to tell you guys about it. Okay, I'm going to disappear here for a sec so you can see this better. Okay, so the changes coming up is that I'm going to have a website, and in order to support the work and the website and all the fees and costs and everything to do this stuff, I'm starting a membership. And so there's going to be different tiers of membership, not within the membership itself. There we go. Not within the membership itself, but there's going to be the free side, which is anyone can access, which will be all my current library of videos and all my current live recordings. We're all going to remain free. Okay. And anyone will be able to access that. And then every Saturday, I'm going to be doing my show, but I'm going to be changing things up as far as the theme is concerned on Saturday, as well as moving the Zooms to Sunday. And the reason why we're doing that is because by the time Zoom rolls around the following Friday, everyone is kind of atrophied with what we talked about on Saturday. So I'm moving it to Sunday, the Zoom to Sunday, so that everything from Saturday night will be fresh in people's minds, as well as it's another weekend day. A lot of people can't attend Zoom because they work. And I do know that there are people that also work on Sunday. I'm just trying to reach more people on a day that most people have available, which is Sunday. And so the Zooms will move to Sunday, and then there's going to be themes for those Zooms. There's going to be a Zoom twice a month that'll be health oriented and application oriented. And then there's going to be a Zoom twice a month, which will be oriented to philosophy and analyzing the lectures of great scholars who have come before us. And so the point of Zoom is going to be a little bit more centered. And then our weekend time together here on Saturdays, and this will all open up with time, then our weekend time here on Saturdays is going to be more of the current world. We'll be talking about current events. We'll be talking about great awakening subjects. We'll be talking about the relevancy of the day. And we're going to apply all that we're learning in the other classes, those that want to go deep with me on this stuff. We're going to be applying that stuff on Saturdays. And Saturdays will be an open forum, free for everybody, to chat with the public, keep a pulse of what's going on with folks, and as well as being relevant to world events. And this will be exciting because we're going into the Great Awakening, and there's going to be a lot, there's going to be a lot of events coming up in the public, even more so now. And so to be right alongside and coalescing with that, we'll be carrying that theme into Saturdays. So just so that you guys know, this is what's coming, and it's all good. Obviously, everyone will get 10% discounts on my swag and access to high resolution. This is for members to my slides, and so on and so forth. And speaking of swag, let's see if I've got some pictures. Yeah. So I'm working on the swag right now. I've actually got a men's and women's tee that we're going to be doing. That'll be coming up. And then hoodies, I'm designing those, as well as shirts for folks, which are really cool. This would be a great way to support my work, support the efforts of those who work alongside me, as well as have some pretty cool t-shirts in the closet. And I've been working on these the last few days, and those will all be accessible to everyone through my website. And here's some mugs and stuff that I put together. It'd be really cool too. I actually like this shirt on the left the most. The asking, no more asking permission, seeking approval, or expecting approval. Those days are over. So anyway, I've been involved with that for the last few weeks and stuff, and so pulling it together. So I just wanted you guys to know that's what's coming up. Okay, so I've been receiving some letters from folks during the week, and a number of them have had some really good questions. And there's been both folks that are really kind of discouraged right now with what's happening in the world, and they don't see sort of what I see in many ways, which is the rebirthing of the human collective. And they're pretty discouraged, understandably so. Understandably so. No blame at all. No blame. And then there's also folks who are really thriving right now and are really taking what's happening in stride. And it's not causing them any anxiety. And they're actually just really focused on their own growth and development. And so I wanted to address both sides tonight. I wanted to address the side of folks that are really frustrated and that don't see a lot of hope. And then I also wanted to address folks who are in the midst of sort of a growth spurt. And the chaos and what's happening in the world is actually inspiring them for deeper and deeper contemplation in their own world and life. And so one of the letters I received was this. So here's the letter. Hello, Chuck. I have been thinking a lot about the nature of spontaneity. And so I have a question. Does the act of spontaneity mean that action is taken immediately, or better stated, seamlessly, or not? Quite often when I go running in the early hours of the morning, ideas flash into my mind spontaneously, yet I'm not able at that exact moment to carry it through. Almost without exception, I do follow through when I'm able to. Is this spontaneity, or is it something entirely different? P.S. Thank you, Chuck. You're amazing. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's talk about spontaneity. And this actually came up yesterday in Zoom. And I had a gentleman in the call who was frustrated because they were trying this whole Zen idea that we're doing, which is no mind and acting from the spontaneous moment and not planning and not intending and not seeking or regretting the fruits of action. Okay, and so he mentioned in the Zoom that he was struggling because he was trying to not concentrate, and he could only hold that not concentrating for about 20 or 30 minutes, and then he couldn't do it anymore. So the answer I have for both of these letters is the same, interestingly enough. The answer is that the act of spontaneity is not in the sense of intention. It's in the sense of fostering. It's in the sense of gathering together a place that brings about, that encourages spontaneity, growth, love, and compassion, but not intending that space with intention or with a goal in mind, or with, here we are, or seeking the fruits of that, but simply having a space. What we do here on Saturdays, what we do in Zoom with my work here, is exactly that. Fostering a space of discussion, dialogue, interaction, connection, connectivity, love, acceptance, tolerance, okay? Fostering that, encouraging that in the space, and then allowing it to happen, allowing life and amazingness to happen. And in this way, you get your intention, or you get what you want without intending, without trying. It's the whole idea of moving the mountain to you without trying, because obviously you can't move the mountain by trying, can you? You see? And so how do I bring about nature? How do I collect and foster nature in such a way that I quote unquote get what I want? In other words, I raise my vibration to the energy I want to harmonize at. But I can't do that by trying. You see, I do that by fostering. Okay, and so the answer to the letter, the answer to the frustrated gentleman is the same. And that is living a life that isn't in reactivity to the world, meaning that you're always trying to catch up into the space that you're in, but not intending a space that you live in that has a goal or intention or telos in mind. The idea is to be fully present now and not concerned about the future and not regretting the past, but not in the sense of being frivolous and not caring. And I'm just going to lay here all day and life's just going to happen, Chuck. And I'm not going to have anxiety because, dude, I don't think about anything and I don't worry about anything and nothing comes to mind. That's not the kind of space I'm talking about. That's laziness. That's being lackadaisical. And a person isn't being lazy or lackadaisical when they are creating a setting that fosters a higher vibration for their life. Do you see? And that the only intention is the intention of the now, to make the now more and more tangible, more and more realizable, more and more experientially rich and fulfilling. Okay. It is that kind of spontaneity that Zen is pointing towards. The individual that isn't concerned about their mind, but not in the sense of I don't give an F, but in the sense of I'm not anxious about what is happening. I'm completely at peace with how it is, exactly how it is. In the sense of the world is a paradise, it's just simply a matter of realizing it, bringing about the perspective that renders this to you without your having to try to make the world a paradise, if that makes sense. And it is this person who lives in paradise because they're not trying. There's no anxiousness. They're not trying to make the world or nature walk on all fours. They're allowing it to be exactly how it is and allowing it to unfold and become exactly how it will become, of itself so. And this is how you remove your mind so that the space is free of you, is free of you putting your projections into it. You see, you're putting your energy in the sense of fostering, not intending, not trying. Does that make sense? And this is here. This is the answer to the letter. And in the idea of this gentleman right there is in the act of walking meditation. It's I'm fully present now, but I'm not taken by the now. I'm fully aware of all things that are going on and so forth, but I'm not anxious. It doesn't make me anxious that there are events happening that I don't understand. Events happening that, boy, that seems like that's just going to be terrible for that nation or that country or whatever the case may be. Not getting anxious about it, but realizing these things are unfolding. Your responsibility is your life, your world, your concerns, and those that are in your environment and in your world. That's your concern. And as long as you keep those kinds of things your concern, you see, the world becomes, right? Because you're a light in that world and you're shining. You're bringing about growth, new ideas, new expanding concepts, simply by thriving right where you are, sprouting right where you're planted, not needing anything to sprout, but simply sprouting as things are without, again, intention or like being upset that they aren't exactly the way that you wish, but simply being the light that you wish to be a part of, that you would love to be for others, kind of a thing. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Let's go to questions, see if you guys have any comments or if you're good. Yeah, exactly, Fortune. Well, I like your new profile picture. Very nice. Yeah. You see, okay. So this is the kind of thing that I'm wanting to encourage here in our time together. And so again, in response to what I've been getting, there's been some folks that are really frustrated. I had some people who have some pretty bad medical conditions and they really felt overwhelmed. And I came across a video this week by a guy named Chris Williamson. Now, this is going to get into some controversial stuff because some of you guys don't like hearing me talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it anyways because I'm convinced, or I should say I'm convicted, that this is what is coming. Now, what most people don't realize is that there are actually good-hearted doctors and people around the world that are working on this issue called aging, this problem we have of our cells breaking down over time, because as you guys know, you are constantly you're going to go through every single cell in your body over, I think it's a period of about 7 years. Every single cell dies and is rebuilt in your body. And you are constantly doing this, just like a plant is constantly growing new leaf tissue and is growing, during spring, summer, and fall, the plant is growing as the light is hitting it. Okay. All of that energy is in it. Okay. So the point being, and this was interesting, and you'll see this as this doctor talks about this, but he's going to talk about the biology of how we as human beings are eventually going to get to the point where you're going to live as long as you want. And it's not hocus pocus, friend. Okay, it's not hocus pocus. In many ways, like religion, everybody's programmed to believe in a heaven and hell and that everybody's going to one place or the other and that you have no choice in the matter, in the sense of you're going to one or the other and that's it. That's all. There's no other concept. That's the one. That's it. We've all been under this idea that human beings live for about 100 years-ish, right? And then we got a couple of stories in the Bible about a few folks that lived to 1,000 years, but, not everybody or most people don't believe that. And the point being that that's all mythological in many senses. And so when it comes to this whole idea of life extension, de-aging, for real, what is that biology? What does it look like? Is it real? My answer to you today is yes. And I'm going to show you an 8-minute video here that's going to show you the actual biology. Not hocus pocus, not here go in this ancient room from 20 billion years ago. And if you think the right thoughts and don't think of a pink monkey, you will de-age 20 years. It's unbelievable. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying hocus pocus. I'm saying hard core science. The real deal. What is actually the reason why you age? and why it is a disease that can be cured. And they're already doing it, friends. Okay? So if anybody needs hope, and remember what I told you guys, I think it was like probably about a year ago, that the med beds were coming and that people are going to live as long as they want. They're going to live as long as they want. And when you start to take that out, you start thinking, like, if nobody's dying, like, Chuck, that's crazy. I mean, this population, the earth is just going to be. Why do you think that there are people in this world that are working so hard to get us multi-planet? Why do you think that is? You know, if nobody dies anymore, if people just live as long as they want and they feel like they're 21 every single day when they wake up, they absolutely feel like $1 million, right? Every single day. Can you imagine the productivity of a world like that? Can you imagine the productivity of a world that isn't consumed with religion, that isn't tied down with limited spiritual thoughts and can actually free the imagination to really go? This is the world that I see coming, and it's not, I don't have to try to see it. You can feel it coming. And if you don't get caught up in the world and all this negativity, you'll feel it coming too. Now let's play the video. I want you guys to see this.
Reversal, do you think?
Okay, here.
How far off are we from age reversal, do you think?
That's one I'm most excited about. So have you looked at Yamanaka factors, or have you talked about this on your show before?
David Sinclair's been on, and I know that he's sort of tangentially associated with it, but
yeah.
Do the 30,000 foot view of the Yamanaka factors.
So every cell in our body has the same DNA, okay? We know that. And the DNA is in every cell because of a process called mitosis. Every time we make a new cell, from the time we're in the womb to today, we're making new cells. Both our entire DNA gets copied over into every cell. But what makes my eye look and act differently than my skin? If it's got the same DNA, how's it different? How's it different than my brain or my tongue or my feet? Those are different cells. There's different cells and different organs in the body. Those cells are different because the genes in the DNA are on or off. So there's a bunch of switches, and the switches are either on or off. And that creates cellular differentiation. It's what makes one cell different from another cell. The eye cell different from the heart cell, different from the skin cell or the lung cell. And the switches that are on or off are these little molecular switches. They're molecules that sit on top of the DNA, and they keep that gene from working. It blocks it off. And then the other gene is open. And when it's open, that means that your cell is making RNA copies of that gene and turning it into a protein.
Zeros and ones.
Zeros and ones. And each gene makes a unique protein. The proteins that then come out do a bunch of stuff. They're machines. They're molecular machines. And they're constantly doing all this stuff in your cell. And that's what makes every cell different, is what genes are on and what genes are off. And the complexity of this is astounding. If you were to think about a cell being the size of Manhattan, so imagine a cell is a city the size of Manhattan with 500-story tall buildings. That's how big it would be. And every person is a protein. There's 10 billion people living in this 500-story tall building, island of Manhattan, going in between the buildings, up and down all day long, building stuff together, never sleeping, always working, running into each other, having coffee, making stuff together, breaking stuff together, working. 10 billion of us. Those are the proteins in
one cell.
In one cell, running around doing stuff for 80 years. That's 1 second in one cell. That's how complex this is. So the proteins that are on or off matter a lot. And then they make stuff. So that's why the eye cell does totally different stuff than the brain cell or the heart cell. As we get older, this is the current science on this. It looks like what happens is we have DNA breaks. DNA gets damaged from radiation and sunlight and bad eating and alcohol and all the other shit. As those DNA breaks happen, your cell actually fixes the DNA. It's very good at fixing it. Goes in, there's a bunch of proteins. They're the worker proteins that are repaired proteins. They go in, they fix the DNA. Every time the DNA gets fixed, there's a chance that those ones and zeros, those ons and offs, get moved around a little bit. And as they get moved around, over time, they get moved to the wrong place. So what ends up happening over time is that the wrong genes get turned on and the right genes can get turned off in a cell. And then that cell stops working right. The eye cell stops doing what it's supposed to be doing. The heart cell stops getting the right electrical cascade to flow through the other cells. All of the cells, the skin cell becomes a little wrinkled. And eventually, if enough of those cells have those epigenetic, is what it's called, epigenetic errors, you start getting wrinkles, your heart stops beating as well, you go blind, all these sorts of things happen with aging. It looks like the root of all disease may be aging. And aging is a disease. So it is a disease rooted in the fact that the epigenetic factors, these little molecules, move around in the wrong place. That's what we discovered is basically aging. In 2006, a guy named Shinya Yamanaka found that he could take 4 proteins and put them on a cell. They would go into the cell and they would move all of those epigenetic markers, those 1s and 0s, to make that cell into a stem cell, which can then be turned into any other cell in the body.
Did you catch when he just said this was in 2006? Did you catch that? This is 20 years ago. Okay, keep that in mind.
So that was the magic thing he won the Nobel Prize for. In 2016, another scientist published a series of papers showing that instead of putting a lot of those 4 proteins on the cell, you could put a small amount. And if you put a small amount, instead of resetting all those molecular markers and making that cell back into a stem cell, what it actually does, it just moves those markers back to where they're supposed to be to make it a young cell. And suddenly that retinal cell becomes like a young retinal cell. The skin cell becomes a young skin cell. The heart cell becomes a young heart cell. All of these cells get reset. And they did this in mice, and they made the mice age to like 250 plus years old. They put it in monkeys, the wrinkles went away. And they've done it in specifically applying it to retinal cells in the eye and reversed blindness.
This is Sinclair's stuff, right?
Sinclair has one of these companies that's in clinical trials now. And there's dozens of others. Altos Labs is like one of the most funded startups in history that no one talks about. They've raised, close to probably $10 billion at this point to pursue these technologies. But basically what this means is we are now discovering not just the 4 proteins, but a whole bunch of other little molecules that we can put into a cocktail. Either we're going to drink it, take it as a shot, or take it as a pill. It will get into our cells and it will reset the epigenetic of that cell to make it young again. They're starting with targeting diseases, like a particular, like blindness or glaucoma in the eye, or rheumatoid arthritis or some other heart issue, and they're applying these factors to the cells in that tissue only.
Locally.
But over time, what will end up happening is this becomes a systemic treatment, and they're already doing it in animal models. And then you can either do it continuously, or what I think will end up happening is we'll probably have a system whereby these factors will be continuous. When I say the word factor, I mean protein. These proteins can be continuously made and released inside our body as they're needed. So we maintain our youth, and we will live theoretically for as long as we want.
There you go.
That's where this is headed. And the technology shows now that we can do this in animals. We can redose them, and keep them
Has
young.
it been done systemically yet?
Yeah.
You mentioned
This is the mouse model where they made these mice the equivalent of like having someone live like 200 plus years old. And this is like so early. They haven't even optimized the molecules. They haven't optimized how you deliver the molecules. They haven't optimized the dosing. They haven't optimized the method of the dose. Like there's all these techniques that are going to be developed on top of this. For every 1 year we can extend average human lifespan, we're adding tens of trillions of dollars to GDP, right? So this is also another big economic driver, but it's not.
Okay, I don't care about all that crap at this stage. Here. So, dang it. There. So there you saw. Right there. Explain the biology right to you. And this was back in 2006 when it started. Then there was another, did you hear him? He said 2016, 10 years later. And now they've already done it. And obviously you guys haven't heard about it, obviously, because the last thing that the controllers want you to hear is something like that. I said that anyone that was in, I think it was like 60 years old. I said like 5 years ago, if you were 60 years old or younger, you had every reason to believe, know, and understand that you'll probably be able to live as long as you want. You're going to de-age. You're going to de-age, and it's coming. And it's this kind of stuff that says to me, the world is under this major, major change. And isn't it interesting? And I didn't want to play anymore because they start talking about all of the economic factors and stuff, because in my opinion, we're leaving that kind of world, an economically driven world. We're leaving that space. And again, there's a lot of people that can't imagine that, but that's where we're going. because we've been told that the whole point of life is to, you know, save all this money so that you can retire early and you can buy the things that you want, and it's all about building power for yourself, protecting yourself, you know, the continuation of your gene pool and so on and so forth. These have been the priorities because we've been a society based on dominator values. How many times have I said this? Dominator values. And those are dominator values. Well, when you have a public that no longer is under the threat of death, can heal from pretty much anything, can regrow limbs, and can actually be brought back from the dead pretty effectively. I mean, you're in an entirely different meaning of existence at that point. Because if you're going to feel like you're 21 years old for the next 1,000 years, the biggest question then becomes, what are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do? You know, because it's no longer just thinking about living 100 years. Now you're starting to think, well, good gracious. You know what I'm saying? And this is the kind of, how would you put it? This is the kind of layering that's coming where when you first realize that the world is a control system, and then you realize, oh my gosh, religion is one of those control systems. And then you realize, oh my gosh, there's a whole spiritual world and world outside of religion. And then, oh my gosh, the entire financial system's a fraud and we're all being stolen from, and everything is complete egregore. Nothing is real. Everyone is paying taxes and it's illegal to be paying taxes because taxing people is illegal. You see, and as you go through the Great Awakening, you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, left and right. And then finally you get to places like this where your entire existential is completely flushed. And this is the kind of thinking that's required. How I talk about, we always want to become the resonation that we wish to be. We become that resonate. This is that higher thinking. Because a person who's thinking on those levels is not down in the space of the person who is still just now discovering that their entire world is controlled, that everyone in government is completely corrupt. You know, and if you're thinking about this kind of stuff, the level that we're going to often on Saturdays and this whole transcending human race concept idea, you are far beyond the thought concept, telos, and idea of the world of a person who is just now finding out that the Pope is a Satanist and still trying to believe it. You know, they're still caught. And so there has to be a leading group of individuals, and I'm not saying we're the ones, I'm saying we're part of that group that is just well beyond these concepts of control and capture, and really in the world of emergence, growth, becoming, high resonant frequencies, tolerance, you know, seeing through the master and becoming the master kind of idea here. There has to be groups like that. Or the collective isn't going to, you know, join in. You have to create that resonance. So anyways, I just wanted you guys to become familiar with the idea, the thought, the concept that what if you're never going to die? And what if you're actually going to feel like $1 million most of the time? You'll never have to take any pills or supplements ever. And you'll have like nuclear energy. Imagine the world you could create in that kind of situation. And if every single person in the world is like that, this will then give you the idea, in case you haven't been able to see it, just how powerful the collective can become if they just simply realize it. If the collective just simply realized it and wasn't being poisoned. It's like trying to grow plants and someone is always pouring some glyphosate in there and it's always harming your plants and compromises their growth. And that's the picture of the collective right now. So imagine if that's no longer happening. Imagine how fast we transcend. So this is the kind of ideas and thoughts that I want to put into y'all's minds so that you can begin to awaken even more and more so. And that is the perfect lead up to this next thing. So another thing that happened this week, I came across a Ben Stein video. Now, a couple of weeks ago, you and we talked about how the president is a jester. And there was a real mixed response to that. And I know that there are a lot of people watching right now that are probably rolling their eyes. I'm not going to spend the next 15 minutes talking about the president. I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes talking about the jester, because I consider myself a jester. And I consider a number of you jesters by the questions that you've asked me. And I mean that in an encouraging, positive way. I don't mean that in a negative way, because the jester is basically the public meme. What is a meme? A meme is a smart and cunning cartoon that makes you laugh and smile, but it is saying a much deeper truth than the surface, which is why it makes you smile. And a person who doesn't, or who isn't clued into the deeper sense, will see that meme and they will be horrified by it. They'll be offended. And this is the same thing as the jester in the court who says something about the king that's highly offensive to those who are enamored with the king. And so they don't see the joke because they're caught on the surface enamorment. But it is the cunning individual. It's the person who's got a good sense of humor and sees past the surface, that laughs at a joke, that if you take it on the surface, you're offended. But if you see past the surface, it's actually quite funny because it's the absolute truth. That's the jester. That's the jester. And our world needs a lot of jesters right now because our world is run by controllers. And the best way to bring down a controller is to humiliate them, to show them that what they're saying and the practices that they are engaging are harmful. You see, and it's the role of the jester to render that to not only the king, not only the court, but all the public, and to do it unabashedly without any apology. Because does a meme apologize when you read a funny meme, a really good meme that really cuts to the quick? Is there any apology in that meme? No. And if the jester did apologize, right? Well, then he's discounting himself, and you won't find what he says funny, and you won't take him for what he's saying. You see, you'll question him. You won't take what he's saying for what it's worth, which is why it's funny. And so I found another example of the jester, so that those of you who get high blood pressure when I bring up the idea of the president being a jester, you begin to kind of familiarize with this, and you begin to appreciate the role of the jester. I mean, look what I do every Saturday. That is my role. That's what I do every Saturday and every week on Zoom and in all the things that I write. I'm a jester. I make light of the tragedies of the world without degrading those who are affected, but by showing the truth of the situation. That's a jester. Now, this is a person who is clued in to a deeper sense. They're not stupid. Their humor has reason. Like when I have my put your pipe and smoke in it moments, or pro tip moments, those are jester-like moments where something extremely iconoclast is communicated, right? That makes the vast majority of people gasp in horror, but makes those who are clued in smile and say, yep, that's it. That's the deeper sense. Okay, so watch this Ben Stein, and watch the way he delivers. This is pure jester. His voice intonations, the cynicism is just dripping off of him. And this is like 1970s, and there's a gal there that's completely taken with media. And so Stein is commenting here on like this whole media thing's controlled, and there are producers that are writing all this stuff. They're all in cahoots with each other, and they're conveying a deeper message that the public is oblivious to. And namely, this gal who's in the interview with him is totally oblivious. And so he's given these examples, and it's poignant seeing it happen. He's given these examples, and she, right in the midst of when he's talking, she says, well, that show MASH, the guy that's in charge of that group and company, he's not what you're saying that he is. And Stein says, actually, you just gave the most poignant, epic example of the exact kind of person I'm talking about. And the gal's oblivious. She's oblivious. And this is the king's court. The king's court and the king are oblivious. They're caught on the surface. And so when the jester says what the jester says, she's offended. He's offended. Like, oh, how could you say that? Kind of a thing, because they're caught up. In other words, they're not a human being. They're caught up in the role. They're caught up in the illusions of the world. And so they act inhumane in the sense of they don't realize you are participating in the harm of the nation, in the harm of others. those that are not aware, the king's court and the king. They are not aware, so they're harming. Whereas the jester renders their harm, but not in a way of pointing the finger, yelling and screaming, but in the way of humor. And in the way of tongue in cheek, like, can you believe that? Kind of a thing. You see? Okay, now watch this.
And the book points out, and I point out to you, Miss Waldheim, that TV is highly stereotypical, homogeneous, and ideological. And that and what the results of that will be, I'm not quite sure. I do think that it is worth noting that the most powerful medium in the history of the world is controlled by a very small, idiosyncratic, homogeneous group of people. I mean, I think if the...
You mean the people who write
the people who write and produce for TV. What I notice on television is that there are certain characteristics that certain people, certain stereotypical people have on television. For instance, all businessmen, if it's an adventure show, are evil, murderous, hypocritical, cheating scoundrels. If it's a situation on television...
She wants to know if you know a businessman who is not a murderer.
Thank you very much.
That, it seems to me, is not a true delineation of them. And similarly, on television, all small towns are evil, vicious places where the big city innocent goes, his car breaks down, and he gets caught in a web of murder and kidnapping and extortion. And all military men are, if it's an adventure show, are planning for a neo-Nazi takeover, and if it's a sitcom, they are buffoons. On crime shows, the criminal is almost always a middle-class, well-to-do person of the majority group. There are almost no poor people portrayed as committing crimes. The criminal is, even if a poor person has committed a crime, he has been forced into doing it by a businessman or some other middle-class seeming person. There are no useful or vital religious figures on television. They're all either buffoons or kind of helpless fuddy-duddies. There is this kind of overwhelming stereotyping of certain power centers and power groups in the society as either bad or foolish.
Well, let me just
say that even the people who make television, even the Gary Marshalls and Norman Lears of Hollywood, do not really dispute that this stereotyping
goes on. Well, then they
goes
are
on.
shameful.
The point is just that there is an enormous amount of kind of background noise on these TV shows, which is a fully alternate reality, or maybe I should say alternative reality, of American life. People watch TV so much that it's like a second life for them, and in this second life, conditions are very different from what they are in real life. That is, in real life, one occasionally finds a businessman who is not plotting to murder his go-go dancer girlfriend. On TV, if a standard episode of Starsky and Hutch... They just don't
pass the screen test.
Right. On TV, a standard episode of Barnaby Jones or Starsky and Hutch will be that a go-go dancer has been murdered. And there are 3 suspects. And one is her boyfriend, who has just gotten out of jail after serving 20 years for murder. And the other one will be the janitor who cleans up the club, and he is a heroin addict. And the other one will be the head of the local utility company who stops in there for a drink on his way to the train. Now, invariably, the killer will be the head of the local utility company. And this is a reality, which it seems to on TV, which it seems to me tends to screw up most people's perceptions of real life.
I watch MASH, I watch Barney Miller.
Well, MASH is a perfect example of what the book is about, because one of the parts of the book is that on television, military men are in 2 different categories. If they are enlisted men or draftees, they are saintly, virtuous people. If they are professional military officers, they are killers. Their whole aim in life is to kill and torment people.
That's not so of MASH.
Oh, it is absolutely true of MASH. In MASH, the people who are the heroes...
officer in charge is a very nice guy.
But he...
See, there it is. There it is. Folks, I'm going to go back to this. Don't worry. I'm going to go back to it. There it is. Is that not the picture of today? The vast majority of people are just like that lady in the show. Completely oblivious. Completely oblivious. Isn't it amazing? And look at the delivery of Stein. this droning na 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 na. The way he delivers the words, it's genius. It's absolutely brilliant.
It's his wife every week.
But he is a draftee. All the people in the mobile surgical hospital are draftees. The people who come over from headquarters are only concerned with bombing civilians. MASH is the absolutely perfect example of how on television a professional army man is 1 inch away from being an SS man.
I don't think the television has done it at all.
But one must not forget also that in the polls that are taken about the standings of and the respectability of various occupational groups, the groups that are demeaned by television consistently get lower and lower ratings. Now, I don't know whether there's cause and effect or not, but what I would like to suggest to you is that about 5 years ago, a big pharmaceutical company came out with an ad for a new deodorant called Sure. And they had a 6-week, very intensive flight of commercials. And at the end of 6 weeks, that product, which had just been introduced, was the largest selling deodorant in America. I would like to say I don't see how it's possible that you can advertise a deodorant and get people to buy it and advertise for 30 years a point of view about businessmen, about military men, about small towns, about poor people, about rich people, about black people and white people, and not have that get bought too. It simply beggars reality to say that television time is worth $90,000 for 30 seconds for selling something, and also say that you don't sell anything on the shows.
Oh, come. People are smart enough to understand the difference between a commercial and an idea.
The message of non-commercial should be all the stronger, because if people are prepared to resist commercials, they are not prepared to resist what comes between the commercials. And it seems to me that even people who are not fools can eventually be persuaded by what they see on TV. I know that I constantly run into people who are bitterly disappointed at some facet of real life because it does not conform to what they had expected based on television. Well, I think the stereotypes exist exclusively because those are the stereotypes.
Look how she's completely turned away from him now. Earlier in the interview, her chair was facing him, and now she won't even look at him. Again, this just shows you the frustration of people who don't see the world that you do.
Stereotypes in the minds of the producers and writers of TV shows. A producer of a TV show, as you probably know, is not like the producer of a movie. The producer of a TV show actually writes a great deal of the TV show. And what I found in doing the research for my book was that the same stereotypes that you see on the television tube are the same stereotypes that are in the minds of the people who write for television. Now,
but who are these people? That's what we're trying to find out.
These are a group of a couple of hundred very influential, very well-wired TV writers in Hollywood. There's a very small pool of veteran, qualified TV writers, and they all know each other. They all share the same values. They're all friends with each other and reinforce each other's values.
Oh, that was it. Hang on. That's, if you want to see the video, that's what it is on YouTube. If you want to go see the whole video, I had to edit out a couple of minutes because I just didn't want to take that much time. But the key point here is, notice what he was saying besides just the funny part of showing the way it is in life. But the key part he was saying was that the company, Sure, had advertised a deodorant for like 30 days. And within 30 days, just advertising on a couple of shows on television said it was the biggest selling deodorant in the nation. And if you then, and Stein's point was, if you have a very small select group of writers who are always writing shows in the same way, stereotyping people like he's so poignantly laid out, stereotyping people like that, it will have the same influential effect that advertising deodorant has, but this is going to be in the cultural sense. In other words, cultural programming. And he was showing that if you, for 20, 30, 40 years, as opposed to just 1 month for a deodorant, but you're actually doing this for 20 years into the general public, always having these storylines of scoundrels and hookers and these businessmen and so forth, and you're putting them in the same types of decision-making situations where they're always compromised in one way and they're always very good in another, you then begin to align that person's brain to the same ideas that are in the show. Do you see the person that's watching that then begins to integrate the stereotypes that are being pushed in? And that was Stein's point. And you can see then right there, the gal that was there with him, was oblivious to this. She was buying the stereotypes. You saw it. And he actually said, you gave me the perfect example of what I'm talking about. And this here shows you, and I show this because it shows you just how easy it is to program the public, how to think about themselves, how to think about others, what your opinion should be about this, that, or the other. And it's just simply a matter of pounding that into the public day after day, month after month, year after year, through all the media, be it television, news, be it silver screen and different storylines and stuff. You guys have seen all that kind of stuff, how it influences the people. I mean, think of all the war movies that were going on in the 80s and that whole idea of the Top Gun thing and this whole shoot 'em up, gonna kill them all. And right coinciding with that, what's happening? All the Saudi wars, all the wars in the Middle East, I should say. All that's going on. And so they're promoting the agenda, which is war, taking over this area, continuing the war effort, sending your kids to war and so forth. And they're just putting that in all the movies. And then now look at all the video games. This is all just programming. And the person who's not aware will fall into these worlds. And that's the point. To cause them to fall into those worlds as a controller, so they actually think that the world that they're playing is the actual real world, like is what the world is like, not realizing it's all just a program. And this is why, you know, we do this stuff. This is why we study this stuff every week, is to not become complacent and to stay right at the tip of the spear as to where the human collective is at and where we're headed, and being a part of the growth and development. Pretty cool. Let's check out what's going on in comments, and I'll go to the next step. Yeah, that's right, Miss Redhead. Hello, Miss Redhead, and I love your dog. Freaking awesome dog. Yeah, reality substitute. Yes. 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 You guys are nailing it. Yes. Yes. I'm trying. I promise. We got some good stuff to cover tonight too. Develop the vision to see below the surface. Yeah, that's it. That's what we have to do. And it's work, you know. Awareness doesn't just happen. There's a preparedness. There's a preparedness. Well, it's that whole idea of not allowing yourself to get caught up. That's part of preparedness. Not allowing yourself to get caught up in the energies, the incredible energies that are working to keep you suppressed, that are working to keep you dubbed down. And it hasn't stopped. The KM is going to go down swinging, in case you guys didn't figure that out yet. They're going down swinging. And you see what's happening in the Middle East right now is all of these ways and means that the world has always traded money and has always traded commodities and traded energy and all that stuff. All those pathways that have been set up to keep us oppressed are being broken apart. In case you didn't understand what's going on with what's happening in the UK, what's happening in Saudi Arabia, what's happening in the Levant, what's happening in all of these countries where there is like really, really radical, tough changes happening. And this is the resistance, those that are in charge, not the people. The people are all for it, meaning the people are ready to grow. They're ready to expand past what the leadership is doing. But the leadership itself, I mean, look at Starmer. Look at these people. Look at these people. They're total criminals, and they go down swinging. They go down saying, "I'm innocent." I mean, look at George Soros and his son. I mean, they go down saying that they're, you know, doing the right thing. And how dare you question this good, helpful effort that they're putting forward? You know, you got to be awareness. You got to be aware. Yeah, open-minded and teachable. That's right. That's right. Nobody. That's why anyone that tells you that they know exactly what's going on doesn't know. That's admission that you don't. A survey noted 23% of recruits cited movies like Top Gun as having a strong influence on their decision, with 93% recruits in some religions having seen the film. Yes, religion will do it too, because remember, the Bible is conflict oriented. Remember, it's winners versus losers. And the Bible claims, you know, we got the winners, and the winners wrote the Bible. I mean, the whole thing is about picking sides. And as long as you live in a world believing that it's about picking sides and picking a winner, do you see how lost you're going to stay? Because you're caught in a world where you're having to pick a side, and you think that is appropriate. And you can see how just falling into that, how inappropriate it is, and how much it hinders the growth of the society. The world is more complicated than what you've been told. In the same way, the afterlife, what happens when you die, is much more complicated than the heaven and hell scenario that you're given. It's much more complicated. And in fact, you have a tremendous influence on what happens when you die because you're a resonant being. And if you carry around low frequency and you're just in general a harmful, nasty person, and you just carry out your life like, look, dude, it's all about me, and I'm going to be the one that's holding the toys at the end of the game. I'm going to make the money. I'm going to close the deal. I'm going to be in charge. And if that's the wake, if that's the energy that you carry, understand when you die, that's just this thing stopping. But it's your spirituality, it's the spiritual sense is what is actually carrying your energy and wake. This body is just a reflection. It's just a harmony of it. It's your soul, it's your inner spirit that is creating these earthquakes of waves. So I'm telling you, friend, if you die and you've been a total prick, you carry that into your life, meaning afterlife. And I don't know what exactly will happen to you, but I can almost assure you, promise you, that if you're carrying around that kind of low frequency, you're going to a low frequency next step. Whatever that is, maybe your next life in this world will be even harder and worse, or you'll go to another planet and you'll learn the hard way there, or whatever happens. But you're going to carry, the point being, you are going to carry that wake with you. Are you sure you want to do that? You know? Is that the kind of energy you want to end with? You know? And so these other philosophies that aren't around or are not oriented to this religious conflict, right and wrong kind of deal, but are thoughts and philosophies oriented to energy, frequency, and vibration, which has nothing to do with religion or belief and everything to do with faith and everything to do with openness and consciousness expansion. Do you see? That's a bit different there. And if you are living your life with blinders on, thinking that you're in a dominator culture and it's about picking the right side, just how expanded is your mind going to be when you die? And how far is that non-expanded mind going to be able to carry you? Not very far. It's like taking on the Atlantic and you're in a 3-foot pontoon boat. Good luck with that. Good luck. And if that's the size of consciousness you're taking into the afterlife, which every single religionist is taking with them, it's not going to be what you think, because it's not the dumbed down world that religion teaches. And this is just nature being nature. Nature will relentlessly deliver consequences to you. And if you refuse to expand your mind and grow your thought and grow your whole overall ontology, that's your fault, friend. That's your fault, man. There's nobody to blame but you. And if the world that you realize after this one is even tougher than this one, that will hopefully clue you into the fact that you need to start thinking more deeply. You need to start living in a deeper sense, a heavier sense with a greater gravity, care, compassion, and love orienting you. Or empty spaces and areas of very strong growth and pain await you, because that's how nature works. We see it everywhere. We see that pattern everywhere. And everyone is responsible for themselves. And if you make enough poor decisions, the consequences are going to crush you. That's nobody's fault but yours. And it's no different. It's no different when it comes to the spiritual world. And it's your job to clue in, raise your vibration, think differently, and expand your mind. Expand your mind. See? Yeah. It's a small concept. I used to ask that of my dad. I would ask my dad what we're going to do in heaven, and he would say, you know, we're going to be in the Shekinah glory, Chuck, and we're going to be praising Jesus 24/7, and it will be just nothing but praise and worship of the Lord, like the angels in the Bible, where they, I think it was, who was it that had the vision? Was it Elijah? Somebody had the vision, and the angels were encircling constantly the throne of God, shouting glory and glory, praise and glory, and so forth. It's also a concept that's used in the tribulation. You see, and it's just like, okay, all right, I got it. So we're attending church basically, and we're all singing praises. Got it. Okay, what else? You know, and Dad would always be like, oh no, it's just going to be a glorious place. It just be glorious. It's just going to be glory all the time. Glory, glory, glory. And it's like, okay, that's it. You know, and to a person who is taken by a conflict-oriented world, that is it. That is the ultimate. To a person who isn't taken with a conflict-oriented world, it's like, okay, well, that's a pretty empty space, actually, if that's all you're doing, if that's what it's about. You know, and a person who hasn't expanded their mind doesn't see that it's actually a pretty empty space. They see it as very fulfilling because their world is conflict-oriented. It's oriented to winners and losers. It's oriented to picking the right side. And eventually that's no longer satisfying when you expand your mind. It just isn't satisfying anymore. It's not enough. Makes sense? And this is why this stuff is so incredibly important. Okay, so let's go to my next stuff that I've got for tonight. So what we're going to do now, this is going to be a good lead into Zen. I've only got 4 or 5 slides in Zen tonight, so we don't have a lot to cover, and this is going to take us a minute or two to get through this. Now, this is a 6-minute lecture from Dr. Campbell. Now, what I've done is I've transcribed it and I've added some art so that we can go back and look at these slides. And what we're going to do is dissect this very much larger picture that Dr. Campbell is going to open up for us over the next 3 weeks. There's 3 parts to this lecture, and I wanted to be there with you during this time instead of just playing it as a prelude, because the concepts are so intense. And within this little 6-minute excerpt, he ties in Adolf Bastian to Jung, and he shows that the archetypes of Jung are the archetypes that are discussed in the folk ideas within the elementary idea of the perennial philosophy of Adolf Bastian. And when you begin to link the archetypes of Jung with the elementary idea of Bastian, you'll begin to understand that all the gods and goddesses, all the great powers of the world that have always been portrayed as these forms outside of you are actually the energies inside of you that drive you, that bring about your will, your inclination, your art, your drives that you don't know why are there. Like, I don't know why I am obsessed with drums and guitars. Like, I am obsessed with those instruments. Whereas there are people that are obsessed with the violin, the cello, the tuba, choir work, choral work. Everybody's got these different inclinations. Some people are into cars, old timer cars. They love everything about it. Some people are into coins. Everybody's got these different inclinations. These are the gods within you that drive you. This is what you have to understand. And we come out of cultures where there was no identity. A person did not have a self-identity. They felt they were acting out of the gods that filled them, and then those gods filled them, and they acted out by the will of the god. This is how people were oriented. And it wasn't until the Romantic era, it wasn't until people got the idea that they had a self, that they had a self-identity, right? That they released from the capture of the idea that their motivations came from outside into this realization that no, those motivations come from within you, friend. They are yours. They're not something else. They're you. And this idea then united the individual powers within you, within the figures and powers and forces that we see in nature and the celestial realm. So this is a very important talk. It is very important that you get this stuff right at the beginning. Because if you do not get this stuff right in the beginning, you will continue to stumble, and you will continue to see those ancient stories and myths as history. And when you concretize those ancient myths right there, you level out the playing field into dualism, and you will never see the deeper 3D concept that these myths were intending you to see. And it all starts with psychology. It all starts with understanding the human imagination and how your mind works. And if you don't understand the power of your own creativity and imagination, you will be taken by it without knowing it. And it will be a God that will be driving you, and you don't realize it. Do you understand? Okay, here we go.
Back in the last years of the last century, there was a really very important German anthropologist, Adolf Bastian, B-A-S-T-I-A-N, who recognized that wherever he went in the world, the same motifs were recurring over and over again. And he called these recurrent themes elementary ideas, Elementargedanken. But of course they appear in different costumes and with different references and different applications in the various provinces and times of man's life. And these local inflections he called ethnic ideas or folk ideas, Völkergedanken. This is a very important point to get clear in the beginning. This leads actually to two quite contrary sides of our subject. The matter of the historical differentiations and transformations is the material of the historian and the anthropologist and ethnologist. How are these inflections to be interpreted and understood? And what is their significance and force? The other side of the subject is primarily a psychological one. What is the ground that supports these continually recurrent motifs? Why are they everywhere? Why do people hang on to them? Where do they come from? Now on this side we have a psychological accent. And Jung, I think, who picked up Bastian's idea of the elementary idea and terms it the archetypes of the unconscious. Jung goes further than any in his accent on the spontaneous production of these forms, what is called independent parallel development. If you find a myth over here with this system of forms in it and a myth over here, there is no need to connect them historically. And so this is an argument problem. How far can one go in speaking about parallel development? Now, I was interested some years ago in finding in the writings of Anandake Kumaraswamy, who was a really very important student of mythology, one of the most important of the last generation, that in India these two aspects are recognized as well. The elementary idea and the folk idea. The folk idea is called Deshi, D-E-S, S with a stroke, the same S you have in Shiva. And Deshi means provincial, local. The name, however, for the elementary idea is extremely instructive. It is Marga, M-A-R-G-A, the first A long. And that means trail, the trail of an animal that you follow. The source of mythological images is the imagination, the human imagination. The base of the human imagination is the human body and its nervous systems and glands and all of this. Every organ in the body has an impulse to action, and the context and conflict of these action sources is what constitutes our psychological problems. The imagery of myth comes from that source, and the reference of myth is back to that source. And so the elementary ideas, the marga, they constitute the path that carries you back to the deepest sources within yourself that are the common heritage of humanity. Therefore, in all mythological systems, there are these two aspects. There is the general and the local and specific. Now, the local is local not only to the society, but to each individual. That is to say, each individual has his own deshi, his own local field of experience. And these mythic forms come to him through his own basic experiences. And here's a little problem. If your personal experiences do not correspond to the experiences implicit in the local forms of your Deshi mythology, you're in conflict not only with the group, but with your whole inward life. We don't know who, what, or even how to talk about these things. They are transcendent of all concepts. This is a basic point. The ultimate source of our life, and it is a source, and it's a continually self-replenishing source, is the miracle of our being here at all. Now this transcendent source, of which we become aware through the impulses and so forth of the nature that's given us, is the ground, the living ground of all our experiencing and acting and finally knowing. But then over that we have this brain here, which I heard called the other day a tumor of the nervous system, which regards the world through the eyes and the senses and experiences the outer phenomenal appearances of things and links to those, not knowing where the source of those things is either, which is the same source, of course, of oneself. And becoming attached to this phenomenon, that other one, and hoping we can stay attached so that we're afraid of death and all that sort of thing. This leads our conscious system off-center, so that it doesn't reflect in its intentions the impulse system underneath.
Okay, good. Now, here, let's get right to it. Okay, now, this is the elementary idea here that he was talking about, elementar gedanken. And this, again, is the idea that there is an overriding force that transcends time and space and culture and society. And each society, over time, builds forms and ideas about that elementary idea. And so your ideas that you have about God, this force, this incredible, transcendent impossibility, right? Your ideas are formed into the local Deshi mythology, as Dr. Campbell put it. The Deshi mythology would be Christianity here in the West, Islam there over in the Levant and Saudi Arabia. Those would be the Deshi mythologies that go along to describe the elementary idea, this idea of God. So the Islamist, they name God Allah. They put God into the form Allah. They give God Allah or Islamic characteristics that are put into the Quran. And so you learn the Deshi mythology. You learn the Islamic mythology that describes that elementary idea, the overriding God idea force. Okay? And if you grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, here in the United States, right, your Deshi mythology is likely Christianity. And so that elementary idea is given the form of Jesus, of Yahweh, is given those names and characteristics of those gods that are in the mythology called the Bible, right? They have the Quran in Islam. They got the Bible in Christianity, and that's their Deshi mythology. And this is what Dr. Campbell is talking about here. Okay, this Verka Gedanken, this is the folk idea. And see this right here, he says right there, third paragraph, this is a very important point to get clear in the beginning so that you don't get caught up in thinking, here's the key line, that your Deshi mythology is the truth for all humans, all mankind, everywhere around the world from beginning of time till now. You got it. There in your Bible or there in your Quran or whatever book you're using, right? This is a person who is a fanatic that thinks everyone's idea of the elementary idea should be the same as me and my friends and our book. Do you see how crazy that is? Okay, you begin to understand then, just through practical psychology and how the world has unfolded, this is what has happened. And this gentleman here, Adolf Bastian, came onto the scene and said, you know what? I'm seeing a pattern here. And I'm seeing these groups, these social groups over thousands of years are always talking about the same thing, but each one is convinced that they're right. Something's wrong here, and it's psychology that shows it to you. You can just see it right there. And it says right here, this leads actually to two quite contrary sides of our subject. The matter of the historical differentiations and transformations is the matter of the historian, anthropologist, and ethologist. How are these inflections to be interpreted and understood? What is their significance and force? This is talking about in the deeper sense, in the ontological sense. And here's the other side, the psychology. This is the spiritual side. This is the inclinations of you. Are you the innocent, the explorer, the outlaw, the magician, hero, lover, jester, caregiver, ruler, and so on and so forth? You see, these are forms of those energies, right, that coincide with your understanding in words, the world, nature. And Jung mapped out, you know what, these energies that people are giving out there in space and these forms and gods are actually inside in a person's psychology. All those different gods and forces that have been labeled in these mythologies and given stories and events to go along with them are actually just talking about the energies inside a person. So if a person then saw the stories in the Bible of the disciples, who then saw the stories of the Greek gods and goddesses as themselves, who saw the stories of Parsifal and King Arthur and the knights and queens of the Round Table, right? If people saw those as actually archetypes, energies in themselves, you transform the meaning of the story, because the story is no longer about history, it's about you. It's not about someone else in the past. It's not about someone else that conquered something. It's about you. And taming these energies so they don't destroy you like they did the gods and goddesses in the myths, like they did the disciples in the Bible. You see, those stories of those figures, those mythological figures, are to teach you, my friend, that energy is in you. And if you don't steer it properly, if you don't harness and contain it, my friend, it will rule you. That's called addiction. That's what that is. That is a God within the person that has gotten out of control because that person hasn't realized they themselves are the one driving their addiction. They're doing it. It's not someone else conning them. They're conning themselves. And they've been taken over by this natural power, this archetype that is inside of you. And it is the psychological work of Dr. Jung here, which will begin to help you understand this so that you can begin to tame it, so that you can direct those energies in a way that is psychologically sound and in keeping with your humanness. That is the point. The point of the myths in the Greek mythology, in the Bible, in the Book of the Dead, in the Quran, is not to tell you a history, is not to lay out lives that lived before you. No. They are to lay out the energies that are inside of you. Or you will end up like those gods that destroyed themselves. That will be the story of your life. And you'll die realizing this. That's called a tragedy. When you realize it, but it's too late. You've already done it. The deed is done. You can't take it back. The consequences are too much. You're dying with them, friend. And it's because you didn't realize that's a God inside you. And they play for keeps. And if you are not aware and your consciousness is not expanded, you'll be like that lady on the television show that has no idea that she is being completely steered and directed. All those energies inside of her are being steered and directed by controllers. By controllers. She's not even in control of her own life and doesn't even know it. Welcome to the world of the religionist. Welcome to the world who's been taken up and consumed by media. Welcome to the person who's been taken up and consumed by science and politics. They're not in control of their own life because the gods inside of them have been taken over by the people that are controlling them. And how has that happened? They let it happen. They're complicit, just like the lady you saw in the Ben Stein example. Exactly. She's complicit That's why she's like that. Oblivious. Oblivious. Like the Christian who thinks the Great Awakening is Jesus coming back. They are oblivious to a larger Great Awakening. Oblivious. Do not realize it. Like the doomer who says, no, the only way we're going right now is straight into doom and most people are going to die. They are oblivious to the higher vibration that's available to them right now because they've been consumed by the god of war inside them. Consumed. And they don't even know it. And this is the picture of the person who can't get rid of their anxiety. They don't realize that they are the one who is driving their anxiety. It's not happening because someone else is doing it. They are doing it because the gods inside of them have gotten out of control from a lack of awareness by the person. And as long as that's the case, guess what? You will stay anxious. You will stay in the state of lack, need, want, desire. You'll stay there. And you'll be taken by those gods of need, lack, and desire that are pulling you along like a donkey being led by a carrot. And guess what? You're going to stay there until you wake up. You're going to stay there. Ain't nobody coming to save you. And it's the same thing that's happening right now with the Great Awakening. Guess what? The person's going to keep getting the jabs until they wake up, until they realize, you know what? Those are a bad idea, and here are all the reasons why. But until they wake up to that, guess what they're going to be doing every season? Every season. Going down and getting the shot. Because their world is this. This is their world. This is how much they see. And this is why the religionist is continuing to ask for forgiveness, seeking approval, expecting reproof. And they keep doing it. They keep doing it. They keep praying without ceasing. They keep doing it. And they don't realize, my friend, you're the one who's generating that anxiety. You're going to have to stop the habit if you're going to want to escape. You have to leave the path you've always gone down, your go-to. You always are doing this, that, or the other to solve your problems. The reason why you continue to have problems is because you keep dealing with them the same way. This is the deeper insight available to you. So by coming to know these archetypes here, right, you begin to know yourself, and then you become the master of your own life because you understand through this right here, as Jung called it, the independent parallel development, which is the development of these folk ideas into realizing that these are actually just pointing to an elementary idea. You are the master. Do you see how these things coincide in pattern? And it's simply realizing that these are all the same resonant frequencies. And the higher in frequency you get, the more clearly the entire pattern becomes. And then it's just simply a matter of, okay, well, I'm just going to participate in the ways that I feel called and led and driven. And that leads to the life of fulfillment, happiness, and glory. And you didn't actually have to do anything. You just open your perspective. You just change your perspective. And the whole darn thing just opened up for you. This is where they're pointing. This is where these great scholars are pointing. It's not just a bunch of gobbledygook. They're actually pointing to it. Myth embodies right here, Ananda Kumara Swami says it. Myth embodies the nearest approach to absolute truth that can be stated in words. That's why we have them, friend, because you can't put those gods inside you into words. You develop myths that embody them to give you an approach to the absolute truth that you are, the truth that you embody. Why do you embody the truth? Because you embody the gods. It's simply a matter of seeing it. And as long as you keep trying to find it in a book, in a guru, in an event, you will continue searching, not realizing your searching for it is what is keeping you from it. Because you think you have to search to find it. You don't. You don't have to search to find yourself. You don't have to search to understand yourself. Do you see? It's perspective. The man incapable of contemplation cannot be an artist, but only a skillful workman. And that right there, he's saying right there, you stay in the box that you insist. And if your mind is small, you're going to stay in that small little box. And you're not going to grow as a carpenter. And you're going to be stuck making the same pieces of furniture over and over and over again because you haven't allowed the gods within you to imagine a greater world. You're still stuck in the roots. Got it sprouted. Sprouted past the dogma. Sprouted past the ideas put into you by others. This is where these great men are pointing towards. The artist is not a special kind of man, but every man is a special kind of artist. And this is just showing you that only you can lead you to your truth. No one can lead you there. You lead yourself through discernment. Other people can help shine light and make your path a little brighter, make it a little bit easier to find that space, but you're never going to find the marga following someone else's trail. You're going to have to find your own marga. Remember, that's the trail, the path of an animal that leads to the den of that animal. And if you're ever going to find the den that you are, that is your truth, guess what? You have to follow your own marga. You have to follow your own path. Think for yourself. No longer believe what the society tells you. No longer believe what the pastor tells you. No longer believe what the Bible tells you. No longer believe what the Quran tells you. That's the cynic. That's the doubter. That's why Thomas was given permission to put his hand into the flesh of God, because he doubted. He didn't believe. Stop believing. Do you see the wisdom of this? This is in the marga idea, which I just mentioned. And every organ in the body has an impulse to action, and the context and conflicts of these action sources is what constitutes our psychological problems. And there you go. In awareness is the source. Bottom paragraph. The imagery of myth comes from that source. You see, it comes from the source of truth, which is you. The imagery in myth, the forms, see, they come from that source. And again, the reference of myth, the reference of the forms is back to that source. In other words, the reference of the myths is not to the characters. It's to the source. Who's the source? You. Do you see it? You're the source. And until you see that, you're going to act like there's an external source. There's not. There's no external. There's no in or out. That's a dualistic idea. You are the one. We compose the one. It's a matter of seeing it. And this is here, the psychological problems. The myth points back to that source. And that's the point of the myth, is for the story to point to your marga, to point to your heart. That's the point. The story isn't to memorize as some historical event that happened and some dude that lived that died for you. You're missing the point. The dude that died in that Bible is your death of the self. Kenosis, the death of the mind. That's what that story is pointing towards. It has nothing to do with history. Nothing. Nothing. It's a myth to point to your truth. Dying to the self, which means no longer allowing the gods to control you, you become the master. You realize you die to the self, the material, and you realize the spirit that you are that composes you. This makes you the master, because then you are all the gods. You realize what you truly are. You realize and see what they have been hiding from you. And this is why the controllers never wanted you to awaken to this, because you can see now, when you awaken to this, what are you awakening to? The God power. The God power that is within you. And the whole point of those religions was to give you this idea that God is some outside figure far away that's in charge of creation and maintaining these bunch of crazy people that are a bunch of sinners. As long as that is your concept of spirituality, can you see how rudimentary you will stay until you realize those energies they're pointing out there are actually the energies inside of me, inside of you, inside of everyone, inside of everything. Even bigger concept, it's in the plants, it's in the earth, it's in the stars, it's in the light. It's just a matter of seeing it. Therefore, in all mythological systems, there are these two aspects. There's the general and the local and specific. See, the general is the elementary, the local and specific is the folk. Do you see? The general is the overall picture, the overall power they're discussing. And then the folk, right there, is the local idea, right there. Local and specific ideas about it. Now, the local is local not only, this is going to be the key to you guys understanding this disillusionment. Now, the local is local not only to the society, but to each individual. That is to say, each individual has his own deshi, his own local field of experience, his own local mythic forms that come to him through his own basic experiences. And here's a little problem. Here it is. Here's the pinch. If your personal experiences do not correspond to the experiences implicit in the local forms of your deshi mythology, meaning if you don't line up in your conclusions to the local deshi mythology, to the local Christianity, to the local Islam, to the local atheism, right? If your experience doesn't align to those deshi mythologies right here, you're in conflict not only with the group, but with your whole inward life. You're existential. We don't know who, what, or even how to talk about these things, right? Because you put that elementary idea into your local forms. And if you don't align to the local forms, what then? And this is the alienation of the person that realizes the smallness of Christianity, the smallness of Islam, the smallness of atheism, the smallness of science, the smallness of politics. And when you become aware of that, you realize, I've been taken by the Deshi mythology, and I must expand past that mythology so that my inward life is not all screwed up. And this is what's happened to the person who is leaving religion, because Christianity, Islam, intertwines itself in every decision you make and every relationship you have. It's completely intertwined because the person is always asking permission, seeking approval, and expecting reproof, because that comes from God, not from within. Do you see? And when they realize it comes from within, their whole Deshi mythology is now a big mosh pit because it doesn't line up to the ideas implicit. It's right there in the statement. Implicit, underlined, middle paragraph next to the orange face, do not correspond to the experiences implicit in the local forms of your Deshi mythology. And this is why the person that leaves Christianity feels so disoriented. They have left their local Deshi mythology, their local folk idea. So they don't have any idea, any concept, any words to put to describe that elementary idea. And so they feel disconnected. They feel lost because the words they've always used no longer apply. They're too small. They're too small. And this individual has transcended those belittling words. That's why I've said to you guys many times that putting nature into religion blasphemes nature, because you're shrinking nature into the concepts of the religion, and that is inappropriate. In the same way as saying, here, you don't ever have to meet this person, just read this autobiography about him, and then you know him. No, you don't. You see? And that's why when someone says, here, just read this Bible and you know everything you need to know about spirituality. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because spirituality doesn't fit in a book any more than religion fits into, or any more than nature fits into a religion. You see? Transcending past the powers, and finally, or past the limits. And then finally, the ultimate source of your life, and it is a source, it's a continually self-replenishing source, is the miracle of our being here at all. And this transcendent source of which we become aware through the impulses and so forth of the nature that's given us is the ground, the living ground of all our experiencing and acting and finally knowing. And think about it, is it not? Is it not? And this is why breaking out of a religion is so hard, because it's the ground, the living ground that you've used to know and understand. And it's risky to leave that, because you're leaving that ground that you've always stood on, and you're entering the ferry boat. You're leaving. And so it's going to be wavy, and the ocean is undulating. And so your world is no longer on this solid foundation of words, concepts from the religion, assurities, securities that the religion gives you. You're no longer on that ground when you start to awaken. And you, by choice, hop on the raft and leave, or even just dive out into the ocean on your own, because you can't stand to be on that illicit foundation anymore. It's no longer satisfying. You see what happens? And so when you move out from that foundation of knowingness of your Deshi mythology, and when you leave that for the ocean and it's undulating, you have to get used to the fact that that's actually the real world, because the real world isn't composed of security. It's composed of waves. It's composed of undulating waves that never stop. There's no security to be found. There's no guarantees to be found. This is nature. You've been conned with the idea that you can secure your life. You've been conned with the idea that you can tie it down as this idea of bringing you security so that you're not anxious. That's a con. It's not true. You can't do that, because nature will never be tied down any more than you'll be tied down. You won't put up with being tied down. Now imagine what you're doing to nature when you tie nature into a specific belief, a specific Deshi mythology. Nature grins and puts its tongue in its cheek and says, oh, okay, so that's what I am. Okay, let's see how that works out. And that's when you walk into that space of unknowing and you're tested. Do you see? This is the perfect segue to Zen. But do you guys understand the concept I'm talking about? Let's go to comments. See if you got it. I'm right at the bottom. If you got any comments or questions, hit all caps. If not, we're going to jump right into Zen, because we've got plenty of time tonight and I've got some heavy concepts to go over. Exactly. I get turned down for not wearing a white lab coat all the time. All the time. Yeah. Isn't that interesting that are the 12 signs Gemini is the jester? I'm a Gemini also, which is interesting. Here, let's look here. Chuck, Ash, this has blown me away. It makes so much sense. It's all BT frequency, higher frequencies. Yes, Christianity kept me locked into lower kind of imprisonment. It's Jesus is floored. That's funny, Bob. You got a good sense of humor. I like that, buddy. Thank you. Well done thus far. Here we go. We're going to jump into Zen. Let's see if I fail you in Zen. Hello, Phil Perkins. Hello, sir. Good to see you. Hope you're well. Here. So after leaving, instead of seeking something else to fill the void, to feel at home, just experience the peace of the void in a state of allowance, and it will feel naturally. Exactly, Thomas. Of itself so. Nature is of itself so. And you just simply get out of the way, and it does its thing. Okay. Nothing really in caps, so we're good. You all good? Right on. Okay, well, let's get back to media assets. And we're going to start talking about some Zen. Okay, next. So, should I run the main slide so that we know we're starting Zen, so when someone fast forwards the videos, they know? Okay, so we are studying Zen right now, and we are on week 26. And the reason we're on week 26 is because I screwed the pooch last week and skipped 25. And so I just went ahead and left week 25 as the Stockholm Syndrome trauma bond that I explained last week, that every single Christian worldwide and Islamist suffers. And so if you would like to understand the psychology that every religionist suffers, just watch last week's video. And I lay all of it out to you clear as day, so that there's no question in your mind that in order to stay in a religion, you have to be complicit to trauma bonding. You have to be okay with that. And as long as you're okay with being in a trauma bond, then you'll be okay with being in a religion. But if you're not okay with being in a trauma bond, then any religion you sign up for, any Western religion, is not going to be congruent with you. So just so you know. Okay, so here we are. Sitting quietly, doing nothing. The goal here is to finish up these 5 slides. We have 5 slides tonight. We have plenty of time. And these are some heavy concepts. So try and stay with me. And if you got questions, let me know. Emphasis 5 of 5. We have done the first 4 already. We're doing 5 tonight. Banki's Unborn Mind and the Futility of Resisting Second Thoughts. Now let's read first, top right, where it says read first, page 142. Principles and practice. Brushing off thoughts which arise is just like washing off blood with blood. We remain, this is the person who's trying to get rid of thoughts. They're washing off blood with blood. This is the concept. We remain impure because of being washed with blood, even when the blood that was first there was gone. And if we continue in this way, the impurity never departs. And again, this is the person that is caught up in ideas of themselves, caught up in the klesha, in the illusions of the world. And if you try to erase those illusions with security, guarantees, a for sure certain future, right? You're washing blood with blood because you're just taking ideas and you're just trying to wash them off with more ideas. You're caught in the mind. You're totally caught in the mind. So, so it's the person that isn't continuing to try and erase ideas, but simply release from them, that is freed. This is how you free yourself, if that makes sense. Okay. It's like an image reflected in a mirror. The mirror is clear and reflects anything which comes before it, and yet no image sticks in the mirror. The Buddha mind, i.e. the real unborn mind, is 10,000 times more clear than the mirror and more inexpressibly marvelous in its light. In all such thoughts vanish without a trace. This is the person this is the nonplussed individual, fully aware and present, fully reflecting the now, respecting the now, fully present, right? Reflecting, but not catchy, not grabby. So they're not taken by the now. They simply are reflecting and a part of it, but not taken by it. This is the key that he's talking about here. Okay. This is why it's 10,000 times more clear and more inexpressibly marvelous. In its light, all such thoughts vanish without a trace. If you put your faith in this way of understanding, however strongly such thoughts may arise, they do no harm. In the words of Huang Po, men are afraid to forget their own minds, fearing to fall through the void with nothing on which they can cling. They do not know that the void is not really the void, but the real realm of the Dharma. It cannot be looked for or sought. I mentioned that earlier. You can't find it. It cannot be looked for or sought. It's discovered, comprehended by wisdom or knowledge, explained in words, contacted material objectively, or reached by meritorious achievement. Now, what is Dharma, Chuck? Dharma, that which is the Dharma in Huang Po's words above here, is the real realm of the void itself. Now follow. We fear to forget our own minds and fall through it with nothing to cling to. Yet that very void is not empty nothingness, but the living Dharma. This is the now, the unspeakable now. It cannot be looked for or sought, right? This is right. The person who's trying to find the glasses while they're wearing them. That's the person who's trying to find God. The person who's trying to find their glasses while wearing them, they don't realize that God is ever present. And this person here, the person who doesn't realize that they're living in the Dharma, really are. It's simply a matter of understanding, seeing it. It cannot be looked for or sought, won or lost, achieved or comprehended by wisdom or knowledge, explained or contacted in words. One simply realizes that the mind cannot grasp itself, meaning the ideas. And in that instant of non-action, the Dharma is already so, already present. Do you see? Japanese Zen master Banki taught the unborn or the translucent mind, this is the mind not taken, is a practical strategy for freedom. Unborn meaning it's always emerging, always growing. What part is growing? The part that hasn't been born yet. It's coming out. Just wait. It's coming. It's unborn. It keeps coming. This is the wellspring. This is nature. This is why you are the same way. This is why your creativity and imagination is like that. It never ends. You never exhaust it. You have it until the day you die, and you still have it just as strong as you did when you were a kid. It's just if you get older and you start letting ideas penetrate too much, you won't access it as easy as a child who hasn't been taken by ideas and concepts. So the less taken you are by the world, ideas and concepts, the greater your imagination can flow because it's not taken by ideas and concepts. Do you guys follow this? All of this stuff is related. It's all related. The Dharma, imagination, living life, the now, these things are all related. And it's the person who is separating these things out and trying to find a task for each, an answer for each, a way of being for each. You see, that's the anxious person. They're trying. They're trying to get their hands around it, secure it down, make this darn thing stop waving, not realizing you're in a wave, friend. You're in a wave. The ocean ain't going to stop, buddy. It's not going to stop. It's a wave. This is called the spirit. It's a dynamism, right? It's electromagnetism. It's now you see it, now you don't. Positive, negative, here, not there. You know, always. Like the electron, ever present, but ever not present. All at the same time in all the spaces simultaneously, all at once. This is life. This is why you cannot live sanely grabbing it. This is why. You are insane if you try to lock down nature. You are insane. You will be on the wheel of samsara until the day you die. The wheel of becoming. And you will be running for your life on that wheel. And it will never stop. And guess what? Nature ain't going to stop. Ain't going to stop. Ain't going to stop. It's a wellspring. And until you coincide and coalesce with that wellspring, you're going to be like drinking out of a fire hose. It ain't going to work. You're just going to choke. It's just going to overwhelm you. It's going to be too much. You have to release it and allow the thing to self-organize. Allow it to become. What has been happening in my channel? What do we do? What's been happening since I started? I was very simple when I started, right? You guys remember my original lives. They weren't like this. It's complexifying. It's self-developing. We're just simply providing the space, filling the space with ideas, concepts, notions, philosophy, and so on and so forth. And the darn thing is just growing. Look what's happening. People on this channel all the time. I mean, look, 11 saved lives. The channel is growing. That number wouldn't be 11 if I didn't start this channel. And I didn't start this channel with the intention of saving lives. I've just simply provided the space. I've just fostered this space. And this is what happened. Do you understand? This is how the world works. Do you understand? And as long as you don't walk into that space, like with the way nature works, you will continue to be fighting the rapids. How would it be otherwise? Nature's not going to change for you. Nature isn't going to stop everything just so that you can be pacified. Come on, get over yourself. Get over yourself. It's a playing field. It's a playground. Stop making it into purgatory. Stop making it into a trial by fire. Yes, there are trials, but stop making it that. That's how you learn. The moment you stop wanting pain in your life is the moment you no longer want to grow anymore. And at that point, you get stagnant. And guess what my naturopathic doctor always told me? Stagnancy leads to disease. Stagnancy leads to these. Stagnant thoughts lead to a diseased mind. Stagnant body lead to a diseased body. Stagnant spirituality lead to inawareness, because there's no such thing as disease and spirit. There's just simply you're aware of it or you're not. Stagnancy leads to inawareness. Do you follow? This is why you have to keep growing if you want to stay healthy. I was asked in Zoom last night, what are some of the methods that I do to this day still be fighting cancer? The number one method that all of my naturopathic and Chinese medicine doctors told me, always be detoxing, ABD, always be detoxing. Every day you are detoxing. You are in the act of detoxing. This is how you stay healthy, because you're surrounded by toxin. Toxic air, toxic thoughts, toxic politics, toxic world, toxic food. Everything's toxified. Everything's toxic. So you live a lifestyle of detoxing. What's that called? Growth. Growth. How do you grow your mind? You're constantly filling it with new ideas, new concepts, and not locking yourself down to religion, science, atheism, locking yourself down to smaller concepts than the one that you're in, trying to find something that can't be found. Good? Fantastic. Brilliant. Next slide. Let's get even heavier now. Emphasis 6 of 9, Zen is a medicine specifically for the mental paralysis caused by social conditioning and excessive self-consciousness. Are you guys ready? Page 142, and one must not forget the social context of Zen. It is primarily, pay attention, It is primarily a way of liberation for those who have mastered the disciplines of social convention, of the conditioning of the individual by the group. Zen is a medicine for the ill effects of this conditioning. That's the religionist, folks, in case you're wondering what he's saying. That's the religious. Of this conditioning, for the mental paralysis and anxiety which come from excessive self-consciousness. And what did I just describe? I just described the person who's excessively self-conscious. Who is that? The religionist, the politician, the person caught up in science. It must be seen, meaning nature must be seen against the background of societies regulated by the principles of Confucianism with their heavy stress on propriety and punctilious ritual. With this in mind, now follow. We can observe the freedom and naturalness of Zen without loss of perspective. Key, without loss of perspective. You see, that's the person that sees, but they don't lose the perspective of the whole. We don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We keep the perspective. Social conditioning fosters the identification of the mind with a fixed idea of itself as the means of self-control. You see how false that is? And as a result, man thinks of himself as the I. That's how it happens right there. Loss of perspective there in yellow. Then we see what happens then as a result. The beginning of the ego. Thereupon, the mental center of gravity shifts from the spontaneous or original mind to the ego image. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We've moved from spontaneity to an image. What does concretizing a myth do? Moves it from spontaneous profundity to history. And what happens when I tie the myth into history? It stagnates because it's locked to time. What happens when a myth stagnates? It becomes a disease. What is religion? Myth that has been concretized. That's why it causes a diseased thinking individual. Do you see the connection? Do you see the connection? Stagnancy begets disease. Once this has happened, the very center of our psychic life is identified with the self-controlling mechanism, the ego. There it is, the I. I am showing everyone who's anxious how to release from anxiety. It then, or I should say, Alan is showing us, it then becomes almost impossible to see how I can let go of myself. You see the mind consuming itself. For I am precisely my habitual effort to hold on to myself. This is why the anxious person stays anxious when they tie themselves to security. Life, nature is anti-security. There's no safety in nature. Listen, never kid yourself. There is nothing safe about being here. Okay? Nothing. There's no guarantees. There is no security to be found. This is why Alan wrote a book called The Wisdom of Insecurity. That should clue you into why he named it that. Because it's a fool's paradise, thinking you're going to secure nature. Thinking you're going to secure those gods inside you. Are you kidding? That's what's called an addict. A person who thought that they could secure those gods. No. You're not going to secure that nature in you, friend. You're simply going to steer it. It's coming out. The gods are coming out. Okay? They're coming. The only way you're going to contain yourself is if you begin to understand the wave, the emergence that you are, the continually emerge. It ain't going to stop. You're never going to contain it. Okay? You can only, meaning you're never going to hold it down. You're only going to be able to steer it. You're only going to be able to kind of semi-direct it like a person who's in the rapids. You got your oar, right? You're kind of directing things, but at the end of the day, you're at the mercy of the water and you're at the mercy of what you happen upon. You see, this is the same idea as this thing here. Gives you an idea, can kind of help you, contain the situation, kind of. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to risk, man. At the end of the day, you're going to have to give yourself to the rapids. Okay? It's the same thing in life. You might be able to do a little bit of steering, a little bit of directing and so forth. But at the end of the day, the nature's going to take you where it's going to take you. And you have to be okay with that, but not in the sense of, I'm going to be okay with it, but in the sense of, cool, I'm not even thinking about it. I find myself totally in the blue now, far right. I find myself totally incapable of any mental action which is not intentional, affected, and therefore insincere. Therefore, anything I do to give myself up, follow, to give myself up, anything I do to give myself up, to let go, will be a disguised form of the habitual effort to hold on. This is called trying. This is called intention. That's just a habitual form of the very thing you're trying to secure, that you're trying to cure. Do you see this? This is the person who's trying to cure their habit of running by running. It's not going to work. You're going to try to quit nature being so ruthless by taming nature. No, you're not. You're never going to tame nature. Nature's ruthless. Smarten up. Smarten up and you'll be okay. But if you don't smarten up, nature's going to hit you like a ton of bricks, because nature doesn't know anything like called mercy. Do you see? It's all connected. Okay, here we go. Therefore, anything I do to give myself up, to let go, will be a disguised form of the habitual effort to hold on. I cannot be intentionally unintentional or purposefully spontaneous. As soon as it becomes important for me to be spontaneous, the intention to be so is strengthened. Do you see? I cannot get rid of it. And yet it is the one thing that stands in the way. See, the anxiety stands in the way of the person that doesn't want to be anxious of its own fulfillment. It is as if someone had given me some medicine with the warning that it will not work if I think of a monkey while trying to take it or while taking it. And this points right here to this little rectangle that I put right in the middle. Now follow this. This is important. On the left there, you see where it says material points and preparation. And this is what I was talking about very early in our evening tonight. This is the person who is simply having a space ready and prepared for spontaneity, not expecting it, not planning on it, having the space. A great example of this is meditation. Meditation, there's no intention. You're not trying to get anywhere. You're not trying to accomplish anything. You're not trying to think of anything. You are simply placing yourself into a space of allowance and emergence. No expectation, nothing on the list, no time frame. You're simply walking into the space of opportunity. Okay, that is what I'm pointing to right here. Follow. That is what I'm pointing to right here. Simply bringing about the space. And you bring this about and keep in that space through discernment, objectivity, and reason. See, this fosters perspective there at the top. Now look at the bottom. Psychology, logic of the situation also fosters perspective. And so through discernment, objectivity, reason, psychology, and logic, you see, we build the space without trying. You see? You simply live a life. This is the person that's living that lifestyle. The person who's living the lifestyle of discernment, objectivity, reason, psychology, logic of the situation. You see, this person, in other words, is not taken. They're nonplussed. And so their whole world and life, right, is passing through these ideas of discernment, objectivity, reason, psychology, logic, you see, and this fosters this space of spontaneity. And then when in that space here, this brings about change of perspectives, is how we change. So when we are in that fostered space of perspective, you see, it changes perspective, and this is how we change. This is not trying, changing by not trying. And then in the pink, resistance is trying. Only option is to change your perspective, you see. And so to remain in that space of nonplussed, you see, it's a perspective issue. It's not a choice. You see, you don't remain in that space because you choose to, because then that would be trying. You remain in that space because your perspective is always widening. In other words, that space is always growing. It's growing in scale to your mind's release. The more you release, the more awareness is available to you, the more you can grow. And this is exactly what I'm pointing to in this space. This is the space of shock and awe, wonder of the real. That's why that happens, because you're in the space of transformation, because you are within these changes of perspective that bring about awareness, you see, and no longer acting upon resistance, but acting upon the wonder, the shock, the awe that you see. And this then brings about the change you want to that higher frequency, that higher resonation without trying. And that is, this channel is a living testimony of this concept right there. And you are in it right now. This isn't a far off idea I'm throwing at you. Try and imagine this. You are living right now in the space that I am describing right here in the rectangle. You're right there because you are in a space of growth, fostering new ideas and concepts. That's what this whole channel is about. Allowing other people to have smaller concepts and not mocking them, but attempting to show them a larger light, a brighter light. This is a space of growth. Do you see how? There's no security here. None to be found. There's no isolation here. There's no guarantees here, are there? It's a growing space, meaning we're riding the wave together every Saturday. I don't even know exactly what I'm going to say. I have some ideas. I have some fostering prep work, to just hopefully usher in the space, but actually how it goes down, what I say, who shows up, what we actually cover, the dynamism, the level of intensity we go through on Saturdays, all unknown. And I very well could bury myself in a bad statement or say something I didn't intend that harms people. Welcome to the ocean. Welcome to a storm. Welcome. Because I'm not planning everything that I'm saying. It's just coming to mind and I'm just spitting it out. Do you see? There's no security found there. This is why the artist that goes up and performs their music, if they don't think about it, they will perform so much better. I heard this so many times from great artists that I used to talk to all the time at work. And they always told me the less I thought about it, the less I tried to hit the right notes and just allow the emotion, the feelings to come out through the intensive practicing I've been doing for months, years. You see, this is it. That's it. It's not safe. It's not safe. Any band that gets up and plays in front of the crowd knows somebody might screw up. There's no guarantees here. And this is what makes the space so incredibly profound. And that's why you come to these Saturday nights with me. You don't know what I'm going to say. Heck, I don't even know what I'm going to say. And you're willing to risk that. You're willing to sail that ocean. And because you're willing to sail that ocean, guess what? You avail yourself for growth. You avail yourself for growth. Folks, I've laid it right here, right there, right smack there. That's it. That is the appropriate approach right there. Next slide. Emphasis 7 of 9, all beings are already in nirvana. Page 144, as a Zen master said, nothing is left to you at this moment but to have a good laugh. In this moment, the whole quality of consciousness is changed. You see, perspective. And I feel myself in a new world in which, however, it is obvious, that I have always been living. As soon as I recognize that my voluntary as soon as I recognize that my voluntary and purposeful action happens spontaneously by itself, just like breathing, hearing, and feeling, I am no longer caught in the contradiction of trying to be spontaneous. There is no real contradiction, since trying is spontaneity. See, that's the preparation. Two different kinds of trying follow. Seeing this, the compulsive, blocked, and tied up feeling vanishes. It is just as if I had been absorbed in a tug of war between my two hands and had forgotten that both were mine. You see, the anxious person is tying their own hands up. No block to spontaneity means when trying is seen to be needless. You see, stop shooting on yourself. That's another big cause of anxiety, is the person that says, I should be doing this. I should be thinking that. I should have done this. I should have done that. And as long as you keep shooting on yourself, guess what? Life's going to stink. It's going to stink. Thank you, Yogi Berra. The breakthrough realization is that all beings are in nirvana from the very beginning. How about them apples? All beings are in nirvana from the very beginning. And guess what? Guess what? Guess who removes oneself from nirvana? Guess who's at fault for that? And all that, and that all dualism is falsely imagined. Who's the imaginer? So who's imagining dualism? And then therefore, by imagining dualism, what do I do when I do that? When I imagine dualism, I pull myself out of nirvana. Baby doesn't have this problem. Baby has the unborn mind. Baby has that mind that hasn't been programmed yet because the baby hasn't learned words yet. Do you see why the baby is so happy? The baby is so living their life like, like everything's a surprise because there's no words for anything. And every single day is living with your mouth gaping open in shock at the profundity that you're seeing. You see, this is where Zen is attempting to steer you to become back to that point of the baby, the unborn mind. Not in the sense of infancy in your mental, but in the sense of not being tainted, being pure, no longer having all these thoughts and programs put into your mind that screw the world up, that screw your perspective of the world. This is the unborn mind that Zen is pointing towards, because that person lives in a constant state of awe, a constant state of wonder, a constant state of profundity, a constant state of rapture. Why would it be otherwise? They're not trying. And this allows nature to be of itself so, to grow of itself so. It is all right here in front of you. Once the mind, falsely imagined, and that the ordinary mind is the Tao itself, page 144, rendering every form of seeking, every form of striving, or here's the hard one, or every form of self-improvement is utterly unnecessary. How can that be, Chuck? You're telling us to self-improve all the time. I'm saying self-improvement without trying. That's where true self-improvement comes. Change of perspective. You're not going to change by choice. You're going to change by perspective. You see it differently. You very well may choose differently after that point, but it was the perspective that fostered, that enticed that change. Do you see? Very, very, very important to understand. Once the mind stops identifying with its own image, the entire sense of a journey towards awakening collapses. What one discovers is not a new state to be reached, but the simple fact that one has always been living in the transparent, barrier-free reality where nothing is lacking and nothing needs to be added. And may I also add, nothing needs to be fixed. It's your perspective of it that must change. That's the quote from Campbell. This world, with all its ills, with all its sorrows, with all its stupidities, is the golden lotus world, is the golden lotus world right now as it is. And if you cannot see it as such, this is not the world's fault. What must be corrected is not the world, but your perspective of it. That is exactly the philosophy of Campbell, fitting perfectly with right here, the philosophy of Zen. Nothing needs to be added. He is showing the reader that Zen is not about attaining something one does not already possess, but about seeing that the search itself was the only illusion. Follow. Watts substantiates this with a direct statement on page 144. Here then is the point of the oft repeated assertion that all beings are in nirvana from the very beginning, that all dualism is falsely imagined, that the ordinary mind is the Tao, and that there is therefore no meaning in trying to get into accord with it. Again, no try. He immediately follows with Hakuin's release in Satori, page 145, how wondrous, there is no birth and death from which one has to escape, nor is there any supreme knowledge after which one has to strive. Again, that is within inside you. And don't you see how it is necessary to abandon childhood notions about the world so to actually realize a larger one for yourself? Is that not the ultimate self-responsible approach here? Seriously, right there. Can you not see how it is necessary to abandon childhood notions? What are childhood notions? That the afterlife is heaven and hell, that you're a sinner, that you need forgiveness and atonement to know God, that you have to believe correctly in order to secure your future and in order to secure your life. Do you see how rudimentary those ideas are? Do you see how grounded in fear they are? Do you see how they're attempting to secure nature and how inappropriate that is? Do you see it? This is why I said a couple of weeks ago, once you see the psychology of religion and you see what it does to people and it does to you, you will run. You'll run as fast as you possibly can. And this right here shows you why. Because you as an adult know it is not a good idea to hold to childhood notions about the world and about God and about yourself, because that leads to stagnancy. And the wise one knows, what does stagnancy cause? Say it, people. What does it cause? Yes, disease. Stagnancy causes disease. And if you keep the mind of a child, the spiritual ideas of a child, when you're 99, you're still going to be thinking those same thoughts. This is why the 99-year-old is still asking for their sins to be forgiven, is still asking for a hedge of protection, is still putting on the armor of God, because they are carrying the concepts and notions taught to them as a child. And so the spiritual world has not grown for them, just like it hasn't grown for anyone who subscribes to Western religion for 2,000 years. This is why. It keeps you in childhood notions of stagnancy in life. And this is why we have a diseased world. Emphasis 8 of 9, the practical outflow of Satori, of going ahead without hesitation in everyday life. Once the double bind dissolves, Zen manifests as we do also when in the authentic state. Unhesitating response. This is just, I feel the energy coursing through me as I read these words. Unhesitating response, purposelessness, and authentic naturalness. This kind of non-behavior, there it is, no try. This kind of non-behavior, unhesitating response, purposelessness, and authentic naturalness. This kind of non-behavior is rendered in activities like fencing, playing jazz, and everyday ordinary tasks like cooking and sleeping. An aware, unattached mind functions exactly like the child's mind, or a ball in a mountain stream, thought to thought to thought to thought to thought, without any hesitation or thought about it. And so please make no mistake, there are two kinds of the mind of the child. The one that holds to concepts learned as a child, so you become a child as an adult. And then there's also the mind of no thought, the unborn mind, the childish mind, which is constantly emerging and learning and growing and becoming. Do not confuse these things. Do not confuse these things. These are two aspects of the same mind, the child's mind. You don't want a mind that holds, that's fearful, that's scared of the unknown, right? You want the mind that's also the child, which is not taken by any ideas or words, which is unborn, which doesn't know and is unafraid because they don't know. They don't have words to be afraid. They don't have ideas put in their mind to make them afraid or cause them to be afraid. Do you see? Those qualities are in that same mind. Be aware of this. Be aware of this. The advanced person, the person who is becoming more aware, understands these kinds of very small differentiations in the initial thought that go vastly different directions as you carry those thoughts out. You see, and the wise mind can differentiate. That is this slide right here, what I said earlier, right there. Discernment, objectivity, reason, psychology, logic of the situation. It all goes together. Okay, here we go. Sorry, I was on 8. Now, an aware, unattached mind functions exactly like the child's mind, or a ball in a mountain stream, thought to thought to thought to thought, without any hesitation or thought about it. One just goes with it, like going with the rapids or sailing on the wind. The balanced individual is just that. They tack when it's time to tack. So you're appropriate, you're relevant. Break when it's time, breathe when it's time to breathe. Love when it's time to love, and so forth, without any resistance to the flow of energy. Do you see? Zen training, as outlined in my book, Elucidating Christianity, confronts the student with dilemmas precisely to evoke this immediate, appropriate action without any hesitation to what is the appropriate response, quote unquote. Zen style is a wholehearted commitment to zero self-monitoring. What an amazing thought. I mean, can you imagine the life without an accountability partner? My God, imagine the thought. Page 151, when it's time to get dressed, put on your clothes. When you must walk, then walk. Don't have a single thought in your mind without seeking for Buddhahood. In other words, don't monitor yourself like a sinner monitors their good and misdeeds, so to thank and confess later. Trust your heart. Trust your humanness, so to foster appropriate behavior and go with that instinct. Blocking is perhaps the best translation of the Zen term yin, as it occurs in the phrase wu yin, no thought, or better, no second thought. See, no clinging. Takuan points out that this is the real meaning of attachment in Buddhism, as when it is said that a Buddha is free from worldly attachments. It does not mean that he is a stone Buddha with no feelings, no emotions, and no sensations of hunger or pain. It means that he does not block at anything. Thus, it is typical of Zen, and its style of action has the strongest feeling of commitment, of follow-through. It enters into everything wholeheartedly. I mean, look at us every Saturday. Do we not jump in wholeheartedly and freely without having to keep an eye on itself? It does not confuse spirituality with thinking about God while one is peeling potatoes. Zen spirituality is just to peel the potatoes. You get it? Just to peel the potatoes. Stop thinking about it. The spiritual experience is peeling the potatoes. Do you not see it? If you don't see that, it's a perspective issue. If you have to have some kind of special wording and everything to make it a spiritual issue, you've missed the point. Peeling the potatoes is the spiritual experience, is nirvana. You see, and the master sees this because there's no separation, there's no differentiation, meaning living life is nirvana. Nirvana. And it's the person who's caught that doesn't see that. And they see life as a purgatory because they're caught in ideas about the world. I'm repeating myself. You guys understand. Finally, last slide. Emphasis 9 of 9, Zen's inconsequential, aimless suchness beyond ethics, religion, or purpose, culminating in the sword of prajna that shatters all abstractions. This is a beautiful concept. The Zen experience is not a premise for new ethics or metaphysics, but the end point itself. Reality has no meaning beyond itself, exactly. And life is complete at every moment without needing justification. Exactly. That's why peeling the potatoes is nirvana. To absolutize it into everything is the Tao is still artificial because Zen annihilates even that concept. The sword of prajna, not about answers, but about cutting abstractions. That's the key point of the sword of prajna. It's not about answers, but cutting away the fat, cuts away all religious overlays so that one simply peels potatoes or points to the sky and a water jug. Watts communicates the final freedom of the aimless life here. If you don't believe, just look at September, look at October, the yellow leaves falling to fill both mountain and river. And the culminating image is Yao Shan's direct pointing, a cloud in the sky and water in the jug. One of my favorite lines. In this way, the entire framework of abstractions is shattered to fragments, leaving one dwelling for the first time in peace. That's what that. A cloud in the sky. Sorry. That's what that's pointing towards, a cloud in the sky. And water in the jug is the simplicity. We're going to read about that right now. Sorry, I don't mean to get emotional. It is often said that to be clinging to oneself is like having a thorn in the skin, and that Buddhism is a second thorn to extract the first. When it is out, both thorns are thrown away. But in the moment when Buddhism or religion becomes another way of clinging to oneself through seeking a spiritual security, the two thorns become one. And how is it to be taken out? This, as Benki said, is wiping off blood with blood. Therefore, in Zen there is neither self nor Buddha to which one can cling, no good to gain, and no evil to be avoided, no thoughts, just sitting quietly doing nothing, to be eradicated, and no mind to be purified, no body to perish, and no soul to be saved. You see, these are all ways of clinging. You see, therefore, in Zen, there is neither self nor Buddha. See, there's no ego, there's no form, right? There's no Buddha. The idea of there being a Buddha is nutty as having the idea of there being a Jesus. There's no need for it. It's just a form pointing towards a deeper sense to which one can cling. No good to gain and no evil to be avoided, no thoughts to be eradicated and no mind to be purified, no body to perish and no soul to be saved. At one blow, this entire framework of abstractions is shattered into fragments. As Zenrin says, hang on. It's a book. As the Zenrin says, to save life, it must be destroyed. When utterly destroyed, one dwells for the first time in peace. And again, that's from death comes life. That's kenosis. They're just saying it in Zen terms. One word settles heaven and earth. One word levels the whole world. Of this one sword, Lin Chi said, if a man cultivates the Tao will not work on all sides. Evil conditions will head up competitively. Sorry, I missed that. If a man cultivates the Tao will not work on all sides. Evil conditions will head up competitively. But when the sword of wisdom, prajna, comes out, there is not one thing left. Like I said, he cut out the needlessness. It's not about answers. It's about cutting out the abstractions, the needlessness. The sword of prajna, which cuts away abstraction, is that direct pointing whereby Zen avoids the entanglements of religiosity and goes straight to the heart. Thus, when the governor of Lang asked Wushan, what is the Tao? The master pointed upwards to the sky. Pointed upwards to the sky and downwards to a water jug beside him. Asked for an explanation, he replied, a cloud in the sky and water in the jug. Sorry. This is just rendering that over-complexifying, over-complicating life removes its authenticity. And what the master was showing was that see these for what they are, friend. They're far beyond what you see. Do you see? He was pointing towards that deeper sense. And that's that line, cloud in the sky, water in the jug. Epiphany. Sorry, didn't mean to get emotional at the end there. That is my fault. I apologize. I tried to hold it together. Just sometimes Zen gets to me. Let's go to comments, see what you guys have to say. Sorry. We'll go to the bottom. Thank you for understanding. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Redhead. Appreciate your encouragement, love. Appreciate it very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, love you too, King. Thank you, Fortune. Appreciate that very much. Thank you, King. Nice. All right, thank you, Shan. Thanks, Max. I appreciate that, friend. Heavy concepts, aren't they? Isn't this good to walk through together? I enjoy walking through this stuff with you guys because you're fellow human beings, so that you understand. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. I can't get words out. Appreciate that, Matt. Appreciate that, buddy. Really do. I don't mean to. Sorry. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, y'all. Thank you. Thank you, Scooter. It's been a brilliant night. I've really enjoyed tonight. It's been a lot of fun. We've had some good laughs tonight, and these concepts are brilliant. These concepts from Zen are good concepts. I would encourage you guys. I'm going to have my website up eventually, but I'm going to have all these slides for you, and that you can go back at any time and walk through these. And obviously tonight, if you want to, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make it full screen. Here, let's do this. Here, the real world, right? The Soma, for a good word to use, the name of my former dog. I never did. Did I show you guys the pictures of her when she was little? Not to change subject, but I'd like to have her up there for a moment. But yeah, it's been a beautiful evening, and I've really enjoyed being with you guys tonight, especially. I don't know, there seems to be a good connection tonight. I think we'll wind it up a bit early here. You guys got any questions before we go? I'll go down to the bottom. What a great idea. That's a good idea, of course. Chuck Second Stewart, good job. Swindoll hankies. Oh my God, that's a funny line. Yeah, exactly. Soma, love her, baby. Love Soma. I'll always miss her. Yeah, she was a cutie. She was my little girl. I loved her to death. Yeah. Thank you, Troy. I appreciate that. I think we're going to wind it up. Oh, dude, awesome mallard duck. Heck yeah, man. I love ducks. That is awesome. Ducks are gorgeous, man. Some ducks are beautiful. The blue tip, the one that has the blue stripes with the white and black on its wings. What are those? It's a blue tip duck or something. Those are some of my favorites also. Love you guys. Yeah, good night. Love you guys so much. Thanks, everyone, for being here. I appreciate it. Heavy night. I'm exhausted. Heavy night. We got some good stuff coming next week. I got some good slides. I've already started working on it. And hopefully we won't be going as long. I'm really shooting to try and get us done by 7 o'clock so that we steer our Saturdays to 2 hours instead of 3, because 3 is just a browbeater. Nobody does well after 2.5 hours, namely me. I can't even read. So yeah, we're gonna hopefully teal ducks. That's it, Shan. Thank you. We're gonna definitely try to keep it contained so that you guys aren't as overwhelmed. But tonight was beautiful. I'm very happy with tonight, and I'm so glad. I never know how my slides are going to come out, so I'm so glad that my slides came out good tonight, and I communicated them how I wanted to. Yes, thank you for that, Leon. Thank you, everyone in chat. Thank you for participating today. We covered some heavy-duty stuff today. We even had some Ben Stein tonight, which is pretty awesome. Love you, 29mm. Thank you, friend. Same, Clueless. Same. Yep, big hugs to everybody. Thank you, Fortune, for your love. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. I really tried tonight, man. I promise you, in the sense of trying to provide a space, attempting to provide a space for you guys, because I love you guys with all my heart. I want the best for you guys, man. I want the best for you guys. Love you guys. Okay. I think we'll say goodnight. I think we'll just close it out tonight. I don't got really a post for tonight. Love you guys. I will see you next week. We'll be back on at 5 o'clock on Saturday. We'll continue in that lecture like we did with Joseph Campbell tonight. We will kick off next week with the middle portion. There's 3 portions to the Sakavati. And so we're going to do number 2 next week. I'll have slides for that. We'll talk about them. And then I've got some more slides for Zen as we move into the next pages. All good. Love you guys. I will see you next week. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.